Hello, all. How are you doing today? So, welcome to episode 2 of the basics of public speaking. We have so far understood different scenarios that fall under public speaking, right? We understand that it's not just about, the stage, a microphone, a thousand of thousands or lakhs of people looking at you, you being in the spotlight. That's not the only thing about public speaking. It is one part of it, but not everything, right? So, what we need to understand is, okay, after all the different situations that we have discussed that fall under the category of public speaking, now that you realize and become aware, how many times have you practiced public speaking today, even without realizing it? Okay, this is what you need to think about, and this is where we had stopped. I hope you have done your thought process on this, right? So, what exactly or where exactly does public speaking begin? I'm just going to take a quick crux before we go to the next part. Okay. More importantly, to understand what is it that makes public speaking different from ordinary speaking? Why is it that public speaking is a skill? Okay. Speaking is not difficult. I understand speaking up may be different, but speaking in general is not difficult, isn't it? It's normal talking. You want something, you have something, you eat something, you ask something when you want. Yes, but why is it so different from public speaking and why is it a skill? I hope all our discussion so far has helped you arrive at that conclusion. Okay, this is exactly what we are going to do in depth today. All right. So, by the end of this episode, you will be able to look at public speaking very, very differently. And that is because public speaking is not about speaking in public. I understand that the word public can cause a lot of, different perceptions or views or a different understanding altogether that, okay, this is all about, you know, um, public. We speak to public, we are in public, we are in we are in the observation of the public. People can see us, people can judge us. No, that's not what this whole thing is about. Okay, so it is basically about how you are organizing your conversation that you want to make. Okay, whatever it is that you want to speak about, what you want to express about, the message that you want to talk or pass on. Okay, what how organized is that thought? That is what it helps you with, because let's understand that when you speak something, when you're trying to communicate something, you should make sure that it is to the point, isn't it? I'm not trying to say be up stiff and be just very like serious and just talk what is only required. No, yes, you speak what is required, but you do that in a certain way, in a pleasant manner, where the other person respects you, looks up to you, and you know feels all uh, you know kind of inspired from you. Okay, you have been able to influence them for the right reasons, right? We discussed about what inform, convince, inspire and entertainment is all about. These are the four purposes. Okay, that is what the whole mantra is all about in public speaking, right? So let's forget everything else that we think about public speaking so far and start from the very beginning. Okay, what exactly is public speaking? Let's find out. Okay, now usually, okay, let's talk about the myth and what is the reality. Public speaking actually means speaking to hundreds of people. This is what the usual idea is about, like we spoke, right? The moment we think about public speaking, the word public catches up the whole attention of it, right? But that's not true. Okay, the size of the audience does not matter here. Even if it's one on one, it is public speaking. Okay, but why do we call it public speaking even if it is one on one, is what we are going to explore in our future slides. You need a stage is the second myth, which is very common. No, it's not that. Stage is not what defines whether if it is public speaking or not. I understand we probably think about TEDx, we probably think about platforms like maybe a news channel or a journalism or journalist or politician or maybe a bureaucrat or a diplomat who is trying to represent the country on an international platform. They are all public speaking, but they are not the only ways of public speaking. Okay, you need a microphone. If it's public speaking, there's a mic that's already set up. There's a stage like you already imagined. No, that's not what it is. You can be talking normally, like how you do. Like it's you can actually have a conversation, and that would be public speaking. But why and which we'll discuss. Okay, you need a formal speech. No, we are not here to follow a script. Okay, when it comes to public speaking, we are not saying you have to write down everything that you have to say and exactly what you say, that is what public speaking is going to be all about. No, that's not what it is about. You need to be an extrovert. Absolutely not. People feel that if you're loud, if you're confident, if you are, just talking, that's it. You are a great public speaker. No, that's another one very big myth that people have. It's not required for you to be an extrovert, even if you're an introvert or an amnivert or sorry ambivert or an omnivert. That's completely fine. Okay, so we are going to solve each of these myths one after the other, but as of now I'm going to tell you whether or not if it's a myth or true. Okay, so we've discussed about um, whether if public speaking means speaking to hundreds of people. No. Stage, no. Microphone, no. Formal speech, no. Extrovert, absolutely not. If you have to be confident first, it is okay if you're not confident, but as you're growing, as you understand the concepts, as you grow in age and with maturity, confidence will automatically catch up with you. Okay, so it does not mean that if you don't have confidence you can't you can't be into public speaking. That's not right. Okay, so let's talk about a formula in a new dimension. Now we have discussed the previous episode about a certain formula. I'm giving you about 5 seconds to just think on what it was. All right. So, what we had discussed in the previous session was that it would be the speaker, the message, the audience, right? And I'm going to add the new dimension, which is the purpose. Okay. So, when we say speaker here, we are talking about all of these elements. The speaker is basically who is communicating. You need to observe whenever there's a dialogue or a conversation or a talk or anything. You need to first see who is the one who is communicating that particular thing. Okay. Message. What is it that the speaker is communicating? When I say I over here, we are considering that we are the speakers, right? Messages. What am I communicating? Okay. Audience, who am I communicating this message with? Where is this transaction or transmission of information happening, or this message happening, right? Purpose, why? Ultimately everything boils down to a why are you talking? Why are you communicating a certain set of information? Why is it that it's important that who is listening to you, who is there in the audience? How is it that it is so important? Because if there is no purpose, why would you be speaking at all? Isn't it? That's what the main difference is between public speaking and ordinary speaking, like I mentioned previously. There has to be a purpose. Is it going to make sense that you just go ahead and talk something which is completely out of context and call it a public speaking? Can we call that public speaking? We can call it speaking, but is it sensible speaking? Is it making any difference at all to anyone, even to you as a speaker? No. So then, when it is public speaking, you have to make sure that this formula is followed, where, of course, the speaker is one of the main elements, the message that you want to convey, the audience to whom you want to convey, and the purpose as to why you want to convey this, because you're expecting a certain result. And I don't mean it in a negative way or in a manipulative way, but in a positive way, right? Okay. Now, the next part is we convert this into first person concept where speaker is like, who am I? Who am I talking to? What do I want them to understand? This is another way of looking at the message. What is it that I want them to understand? And the purpose is, why am I speaking? You're speaking, okay, but why are you speaking? Why is it that that makes it important for you to speak? Okay, that is where the purpose comes into picture. All right. So let's look at this set of public speaking versus ordinary conversation. Why is it that public speaking is different? So, if we talk about elements, let's start with talking about participants. Okay. In an ordinary conversation, usually the number of participants could be two or a few. Okay, maybe 5, 6, 10, 20 also. 20 might sound a little too much, but let's keep it to maybe a 10 or a 12 people. When it comes to public speaking, one speaker addressing a whole set of audience is what public speaking will be about. How is the structure when it comes to ordinary conversation? It will be very spontaneous. There's no plan, there's no agenda. Of course, like I mentioned, there's no purpose. Okay. Public speaking is intentional. It is very, very specific. It is very, very purpose driven, agenda driven. Okay. uh, what is the purpose when it comes to ordinary conversation? Just social exchange, just casually talking about, okay, I watched this movie, I had popcorns, I had an iced tea, I saw some donuts, I had that as well. Alongside, I just did some shopping, I just took something. This is how you do an ordinary conversation. There's no agenda of it. You're just probably telling what happened. You can't even call it an information because it doesn't make any difference if you don't share that set of talk as well, right? Public speaking, on the other hand, it has a defined purpose as to why you are talking. Again, everything comes down to why are you talking about something? Because there is a certain purpose, right? Audience, what happens over here in the ordinary conversation? Audience will usually participate actively because you are probably just chit chatting, right? But when it comes to public speaking, usually the audience listens primarily, however, they also respond. I'm not saying participate specifically because participate can mean that they can interrupt anytime and they can talk and ask and everything. But when it comes to public speaking, again, not just the stage setup, but in any sort of intentional talking, when the speaker talks, okay, people usually first listen and then they respond based on probably a question asked or an activity that is going on, right? Preparation, okay, often little or no preparation. We don't really need any kind of preparation for something which doesn't have a purpose. You just talk, you just speak what comes to your mind, right? I'm not trying to degrade this, okay, but don't you see how it makes such a difference when sometimes we say, I'm glad we had this conversation? Why? You can always have conversations, maybe 24/7, which is too ambitious, but still, you can always have conversations. However, don't you think it is for a reason that we feel good about certain conversation? Why? Because we learned something, because something shifted in us. We were able to change our thought process or perception about something. We felt positive about something. We felt inspired about something. We enjoyed a certain conversation a lot for a reason, and we were entertained, or maybe we received a piece of information which completes probably a missing puzzle that we've been looking for a long time, right? That is why it talks about preparation. Okay. Delivery is very casual. In ordinary conversation, you don't have to dress up in a certain way, you don't have to look a certain way, speak a certain way. I'm not again trying to say in a rude manner, but true, right? I mean, you do not have to you know um really think too much. You can just start talking and people can listen and probably pitch in whenever they feel like, right? But public speaking is more deliberate. Like, you have to speak in a certain way, and when the audience is responding also, they have to be very deliberate and very intentional in what is it that they want to ask, what is it that they want to talk about, right? Okay. Now, the last part is responsibility. Usually, the responsibility is a shared responsibility because you are just talking, you are just probably discussing on which bat to buy for a certain cricket game or which ball to buy from which shop. Okay, I understand. If you really get into the strategy aspect, then it converts into public speaking, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something very, very simple. Okay, but when it comes to public speaking, the greater responsibility is always on the speaker because it is the speaker on whom everything relies in the sense whether if the audience is feeling connected or not, whether if the audience is feeling engaged or not, whether if the audience is responding or not. Okay, whether if you have been able to, as a speaker, whether if you have been able to make any inspiration or influence on even one person at all in a positive way. Again, I will always strive to stress on the aspect of positive manner, because influence, when we say influence, it can also come across as negative. Okay, the fifth dimension purpose of public speaking, we already know that we spoke about inform, entertain, persuade, and inspire, right? We have discussed about this. So any situation or conversation that satisfies all of these, or either of these, sometimes it's a mix of these, but either of these, it falls under the category of public speaking, right? Now, the first one, like we have discussed, is to inform, to convince, to inspire, to entertain. The last one, I'm giving you about 2 to 3 seconds. Think about it. What do you think could be the fifth dimension purpose of public speaking? Okay, so coming to this, the fifth one is going to be connect. All right, so let's see. I mean, don't we agree, coming back to the same slide, don't we agree that whatever are the different purposes, connecting with the audience is one of the main reasons? Will it make any sense that you are saying something and it is not helping the audience in any manner? And ultimately, you know um, even if you were talking the best thing you could, you had a lot of knowledge, but the audience could not connect with you, and that's why it did not really make much of a difference. Okay, it was okay even if they did not hear the speech. I'm not trying to degrade you or demean your efforts, but what I'm trying to say is sometimes when we are not able to create that connect with the audience, or create that engagement. Again, engagement does not necessarily mean you ask questions and you just somehow just get someone to do something and all. No, connect is when audience is so involved that they will not think twice to you know um, approach you or ask you question or to respond to your points. Okay, the power of public speaking is basically every single speech that you give, every single conversation that you're a part of, every single room that you enter, people are like, okay, when this person talks, it's going to change. You said no to me, you will not be able to say no to this person. That is the power of public speaking. You cannot achieve that in ordinary speaking, can you? Right? If you're talking about, I just cleaned my apartment, I did this, I did that. Okay, it's a good thing you did all that, but okay, what else? How is it making a difference in a bigger manner, right? So what can happen as a part of public speaking is it has the power to change knowledge, isn't it? You, like we discussed about myths versus reality, there must be so many myths in your mind which you feel are very true, but once you listen to someone credible talk about something, saying that no, whatever you're thinking is a myth, this is what this whole thing is about, this is what actually happens. Okay, that changes a lot of things. Changing emotions, maybe whenever there is a certain word or certain situation or a scenario, you always feel upset by default. There's no way that you give any other kind of emotion to it or thought to it. But when a certain credible person talks to you, the whole idea of that situation changes for you and you're able to look at it positively, right? changing decisions. If someone is able to influence you or convince you or persuade you to change your decision for good, again, for good, okay, that is the power of public speaking, right? When the speaker is talking to maybe lakhs of people or thousands of people or 10 people or 5 people or 2 people or even one person, has that person, been able to make an influence in your decisions for the right reasons? Maybe you are going to let go of an opportunity, but this person says it's okay, take the risk, it's worth it. Look at your background, look at this, look at that. You have been waiting for this opportunity. Why are you not taking this? You will immediately be like, yeah, true. Why am I not taking this? Why? What is stopping me? You will think about it and you will take that decision, because just imagine that's the power of public speaking. Change behavior. Someone behaving with a certain person or a certain set of people or certain kinds of people, okay, or even with the speaker or even in with themselves or in general. When they listen to you, are you able to inspire them to make that change so that they come across respectfully? Sometimes you may have heard some people say, when I said the same thing to you, you did not listen to me. But now, when this person said it just one in a very crisp language, you understood. What is it? Are you scared of this person? Does this person have any weakness of yours against you? No, that person was actually very good speaker, and that person had the art of being able to persuade for the right reasons for people to change their behavior, right? Okay. Now, why do we learn public speaking? Okay, let's list out a few reasons over here. Okay, sharing ideas, isn't it? You just you know I'm sorry guys, I have bad ulcer. Okay, you're able to share ideas, right, effectively, discussing on ideas that can actually convert into something beautiful, right? You might be building confidence. Okay, um, when you are able to build confidence in other people, it is one of the most powerful things that you can do. Okay, become leaders, isn't it? When you can address your thoughts, when you can convey your thoughts, when you can convey the purpose, when you can make that change in the other person's way of thinking, thought process, change that perception, don't you become a leader, right? Okay, influence people, right? Another person, I mean, another purpose, like I mentioned, influencing someone, convincing someone, okay? You're able to solve problems. That is what we learn, when you're doing public speaking. These all things, they look completely unrelated when it comes to public speaking, but trust me, this is what happens, right? Create opportunities, okay? When you talk, when you sit across a certain set of forum, you are able to create different ideas, and you are able to you know uh, help people understand that this is something which can solve our problem, and you are creating opportunities for bringing the best out of people, right? Now, opportunities, usually we can think about probably a job, or a career opportunity, which also is true, okay? But in a younger age or at college level, opportunity also means what is going to help you learn more, okay? What prospect are you expecting to get? All right. Now, I'm going to talk about something called as the communication chain. What happens over here is it starts with a thought, okay? It goes ahead with words, All right, moves on with delivery of those words. Okay, so thoughts become words, words are delivered to whom? To audience. Audience receives that message, basically the words, and audience response. And when the audience responds, ultimately there is an impact of that thought. Do you see? Thought and impact, what all happens between that? That is what the communication chain is all about. Okay, so let's see how we can put these 6 words in the stage aspect and move it on to key question. When you start with thought, what do I actually think is your key question. What are you thinking? Okay, words, how can you put those thoughts into words which express your thoughts clearly, right? Delivery, how should you say it? Can you just start talking? No, you have to choose your words. You have to be intentional about what you're talking about. Okay, audience, who is listening? Who are you going to try to impact? Whose mindset are you trying to impact? What is the kind of people you have? Are they elderly people? Are they young people? Are they kids? Are they same age people? What is it? Okay, response, what happens in them when you are talking? What happens to them when you're sharing that set of information or trying to influence them or whatever? Okay, impact, what changes because you spoke? When the audience is receiving your message, responding to your message, what kind of change are you bringing in them when you are talking? Okay, that is what impact is all about. So this chain basically helps you to break down how you want to design the way you speak, the design your thoughts, design your conversation or your speech in such a manner that it creates the highest level of impact there is to the people who are listening to you. Now I come to a very interesting activity. Okay, let's do this together. All right, rate the professionals based on the amount of public speaking required. Okay, rate them as per high, medium, low. And you can actually rate them after 5 stars, where the 1 is the lowest and 5 is the highest. All right, let's begin. Doctor, tell me, how much amount of public speaking is required between 1 to 5? Okay, I will give you 1 or 2 seconds for each of the talk. All right, so this is going to be a 5 star. Okay. Next, scientist. This comes to be a 5 star as well because, of course, you need communication for both doctor and scientist. What are you doing? How is it going to help or not help? Right? Game designer, 4 stars. Okay. Influencer. I think this goes without saying. It needs a complete 5 star. I mean, I'm sure we all know this because we all are in the world of Instagrams and WhatsApps and YouTubes of the world. Astronaut, 4 stars, right? Lawyer, 5 stars. There's no way you can work without speaking, and all those purposes are tick marked when you're a lawyer. Okay? Football captain, you are inspiring your team, you are motivating your team, you're encouraging them to play better. 5 star, of course, yes. Okay? Singer, given, it's a 5 star, right? Artist, 4 star. Majorly depends on what kind of artist you are. Since it is not too specific, there are some kinds of arts where speaking is not required, probably about sketching, probably it's about a dot mandala or so, right? Chef, 4 star, right? So concluding this whole session, you will find a lot of different definitions of public speaking. You can call it as art of expressing your thoughts clearly and purposefully to influence, inform, inspire, or connect with others, sharing your ideas with others in a way that they can understand, remember, and respond to, right? Using your voice, your words, your presence in that area to communicate the message which creates an understanding, action, or connection, right? How is it that you are doing a purposeful communication that helps people think, feel, or act differently? The impact that we spoke about, right? Not about speaking in front of people. Public speaking is not about speaking in front of people. It is all about making your ideas matter to people, right? The ability to express your ideas with clarity, confidence, and purpose so that people understand, they connect with you, they respond to you, and they remember you because of the way you conveyed that message, and that message reaches to them loud and clear, and it is instilled in them for life, right? Okay. So basically, like we have understood through all of this, I come to an end and conclude this session to give you this lesson that public speaking is not about a microphone, it is about communicating with a purpose. Okay. So I hope that these two sessions have given you a good idea about what public speaking is all about, what all are the different scenarios. So now, when you go through your daily life and observe different situations, you will be able to categorize whether or not a certain conversation is public speaking or not. Okay, so I'll see you in the next episode. Okay,